All right, I started the recording and I'll turn the hosting back to you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner, please go ahead.
So good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking time out at the end of a very long day. We started today with the first significant announcement of development in the Auburn Gresham area, a healthy hub. Adaptive reuse, $13 million investment on 79th Street. The city, through the CARES Act, was able to contribute $4 million to get them over the finish line at what will be the cornerstone of that redevelopment strategy. That is a block and a half away from a $20 million reinvestment in the metro station. And after that wonderful announcement, we went right into a workshop with a group much like the group that's assembled here today to imagine redevelopment on every single publicly owned parcel at the intersection of 79th and Halsted. We could not have done that work without this partnership that we forged with CCAC that's brought the talent that you see here assembled. And we could not have done it without a reconstituted planning and development department that puts neighborhood planners, urban designers, landscape architects in the geographies that we are hoping to catalyze. So it's great. You can imagine this is then the third Invest Southwest moment, so I'm really excited. Understand that this is new for the city. Rarely have we put this level of coordination of our different departments, our TIF funding, our transit funding, the folks on the ground who have been tilling the soil for years and years. We rarely have we put this kind of framework. Now, Englewood has a very special place in our collective memory, and there have been a lot of things done, as you probably will see from this presentation, that got the community to where it is now. We're hoping to reinforce that work, maybe tweak it, maybe tilt it a little towards the pedestrian orientation of things, maybe increase the density and the mixed use. But the bones and the foundation are all there. So I'm very excited about what's going to come out of this workshop. Understand what's going to come out of this workshop is going to inform the request for proposals. And it won't be a request for a mega developer to land in Englewood. It is going to be incremental. It probably will be an ecosystem of community developers. But when we come out of this, when we release the RFP, we want the developer teams that respond to this to know exactly what Englewood wants out of this. And so that means we have to take the time to imagine the programmatic build out, to imagine the massing build out, to really determine what we are looking for a development team to respond to. So I know that this is not the way the city has historically done business in our neighborhoods, but this is our way. It's a bit of a test, but I think you will see from the work that we've assembled a wonderful partnership between the private sector, the design community, the commercial real estate community, planners. So we've got all the pieces here, but most importantly, for those, and I can't see everyone, we have the folks on the ground who are going to inform this work and who are ultimately going to implement this work. So all for taking time. I know they have a lot of stuff to cover, So I'm going to pass it back to Luke and let him drive the agenda as has been laid out. But just thank you all for participating. And I will be quiet now.
All right, Commissioner Cox, thank you so much for that intro. Again, thank you to everybody for joining us. I'm Luke Mish, planner here in the Southeast region, specifically focused on Englewood. I think I've at least spoken with many of you on the previous roundtables. As Commissioner noted, we do have a lot to cover today. So I'm going to launch right into the deck, and the first slide we'll be looking at is a few more introductions that I want to make sure that we get to, both for the city and our team here. Is everyone able to see this this blue cover, Englewood and West Southwest? Can everyone see that? Okay, I'll go ahead and try to make it full screen here. All right, so this is what we're going to be trying to go through with you all today. We want to make sure we give some time for some introductions. We want to touch on goals for today, go over what we've heard both in terms of previous plans, the Invest Southwest kickoffs, and recent stakeholder calls that the team has taken on. We'll be looking at existing conditions, especially kind of a market analysis framework for the opportunity sites on the corridor. We'll be looking at the opportunity sites more broadly and then diving in specifically to some elements of the RFP. So we'll be doing breakout groups with this, and we just did this with Auburn Gresham about 30 minutes ago, and I know the Austin Chicago Ave team did it on Friday. So fingers crossed that technology is our friend and we're able to break into those breakout rooms and have a more focused conversation with a somewhat smaller group. And then we'll talk about next steps. So I'll start here just by introducing the team, of course. The Southeast region is led by Lisa Washington. Gerardo Garcia is on the call here as our design review lead, instrumental in helping us pull this work together. And then myself, Patrick, and Kim are project managers here in the Southeast, each with a different focus as it relates to Invest Southwest. Last but not least, I'm realizing not on this list, of course, is Deputy Commissioner Jim Harvin. Jim, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words here before we hand it over to Kelly and the CCAC team.
No, Luke, I'm going to let you keep going. I know we've got a lot of content. This group is ready for this information, so let's just keep it going.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, I'll turn it over to Kelly O'Brien with the Chicago Central Area Committee, and she'll do a little introduction for CCAC, and also we can run through the team here at hand who's been instrumental in pulling this work together and moving us forward. So Kelly?
Thank you, Luke. So my name is Kelly O'Brien, and I lead the Chicago Central Area Committee, CCAC. If you're not familiar with our group, we have over 60 years of experience in planning and development. Our members have been at the forefront of helping to position the city to be the global destination that it is today. And several years back, the leadership of the CCAC made the decision that they wanted to be able to have the talent within our membership focus some of their skills to dedicated to revitalization in the neighborhoods. And last summer, we published a white paper titled A Central City Strategy for All of Chicago. That white paper can be found on our website, ccac.org. And the first actionable project out of that white paper was a collaboration with World Business Chicago. We focused on 5 communities within the South and West neighborhoods. And in February, we finished phase 1 of that. We were honored when Commissioner Cox approached CCAC and asked us to team up with DPD on this effort with the RFPs for 3 neighborhoods within the Invest Southwest program. So I want all of the community members that are a part of this this workshop today to really understand how committed our members are to this work, to understand that by virtue of being a part of this effort, they have signed an agreement that they will not pursue any paid opportunity for this RFP. So this is 100% pro bono. And I also really want to commend Commissioner Cox and the whole DPD team. It is extraordinary public service. The commitment and the passion is unparalleled. And when I tell you that I see emails and phone calls happening from sunup to sundown, 7 days a week, I am not exaggerating. So a big round of applause for the whole DPD team. And it is my honor to hand this off now to our very talented CCAC members. One of the members of our executive team, SCB, has led this fantastic team. So I'm going to ask Curtis if you would please introduce yourself and then continue to introduce the other leaders at SCB as well as the team members. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. My name is Curtis Jones, and I am a project architect with over 20 years experience in urban projects throughout the country. I've been working for SCB for 10 years. I would like to introduce Christine Carlisle, who is a principal of urban planning at SCB, with I believe 20 years at SCB as in urban planning. Albert Whitefield is a urban planner also with SCB, and think he's been with us for about 4 or 5 years. And then the newest member of the urban planning department, Jean Pisano, she has been with us in less than a year. This team has worked very hard and diligently over this time period to put together these proposals for you to review, and I think that we are very confident and positive about what we're ready to present. Kelly, you can pass it off to the next person.
Sure. So next I'd like to introduce the Smith Group. Rona, if you'd like to say hello.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rana Lee, and I'm a principal and director of business development at Smith Group, and I have been with the firm for 13 years. And I'm going to ask my colleagues Taft Cleveland and Brett to introduce themselves. And Janet.
Thank you, Rana. Good evening, everyone. My name is Taft Cleveland. I am a healthcare architect and urban planner with Smith Group, and I've been with the company for 5 years, and my focus is on public health and creating better communities. And I'll send it over to you, Brett.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brett Weidel. I'm a landscape architect with Smith Group. I've been with the company 3 years now, and I focus on urban design and community development. Janet?
Yes, hi, everyone. I'm Janet Atarian. Some of you may know me. I worked actually in the city of Chicago for over 20 years, but now I'm with Smith Group, and I've been with the company for just under a year.
Thank you. Are there any participants from the John Buck Company? Dominic or Kate?
Yes, I'm on. My name is Dominic Aducci, and I am the managing director in charge of development at the John Buck Company. And my colleague, Kate Knutson. Are you on, Kate?
I am. Hi, everyone. My name's Kate Knutson. I'm an analyst on the investments team at the John Buck Company. Excited to be here.
Patty Gallagher. Patty, you might be on mute.
Okay. Hello,
There
everyone. I'm Patty Gallagher. I have my own firm, P. Gallagher and Associates. I'm a proud alumni of the Department of Planning and Development. I spent 15 years there, and I'm also an alumni of the Chicago Central Area Committee. Before heading out to Washington, D.C., where I was a federal planner focusing on the public spaces in the national capital. So very happy to be back here helping my old department and my colleagues from DPD.
Thank you, Patty. Kevin Burns.
Thanks, Kelly. Kevin Burns. I'm a commercial real estate appraiser. My partner, Mike Walsh, and I have appraised property all over the city of Chicago for many years, for many clients, including the city. In my particular interest in this project is I'm an old South Sider, born in South Shore, and very happy to contribute to this effort.
Thank you, Kevin. And Curtis, thank you for announcing the names of the team members. but maybe we can just quickly get just a second of camera time. Christine Carlisle, do you want to say a quick hello?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We're really excited to be working with you on this project. There's a lot of material here tonight, and I hope that we get your feedback and your thoughts on all this, and we'll be able to distill it into the next phases.
Thank you, Christine. Albert, who again I know worked tirelessly all weekend. Want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, hi, this is Albert Whitfield, and as Curtis mentioned before, I'm a planner at SCB and have been there for several years.
Thank you. Jen Pisano.
Hi, I'm Jen Pisano, and I'm a planner at SCB.
Thank you, Jen. Did I miss anybody from CCAC? Hearing none, I will pass it back to DPD. But again, I just want to thank the team, thank DPD, and let the community partners know. I think the next hour and a half is going to be very transformative. So good, it's going to be a great workshop. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you to the full team. Again, you know, I think the selflessness of the help we've gotten from the team has been really, really great. And we hope that we have some good materials here to get some feedback from everybody on the call. So with that, again, we do have a lot to cover. What are we trying to do today? We're really trying to touch on 4 main items. We want to confirm development strategy for 63rd and Halsted. And I say confirm because we know that you all have been planning and designing this area for years. We're going to go through some of the key takeaways from plans extending back to 2005, but we know that you've been thinking about this since even before that. We want to determine parcel-specific development visions for specifically the Englewood Square RFP sites. So as we talked about during the last roundtable, we have almost a dozen opportunity sites within the corridor more broadly, but 3 of those sites in particular will be covered in an RFP that we'll be aiming to issue here next month. Or I should say in August, which is almost next month. We'll discuss that RFP a little bit. We want to talk about the process and how we make sure that you all are part of that selection process. And so we want to touch on that with you all. And finally, we want to do a little bit of brainstorming of selection criteria. Now, this won't be the last chance for us to talk about this, but we do want to start the conversation around how do we make sure that the developers, the designers, the contractors, and potentially even those who end up leasing or working or even living in these spaces are reflective of the community, greater Englewood more broadly. So again, just to recap, here we are in West Southwest, 63rd and Halsted corridor. We've talked about this a lot, in not only the last but previous tables. This is carrying that forward, understanding that this is really a great opportunity for us to leverage a series of investments and multiple departments, multiple agencies, and really provide that catalytic development. You'll hear us say that a number of times today. And what we mean by that is how can we do initial investment by the city and others to kind of spur additional private development. And I think when we talk about private development, we're talking about development coming from you all, from the community. So how can we leverage city resources to make that happen is definitely a key what we're doing. But we know we're building on a rich tradition of history here, right? These are some historic photos that we've been able to. I'm sure you all might even have a better array of these as well. But we know that Englewood and Englewood Square in particular was essentially the downtown of the South Side in the early part of the 20th century. As many of you know, I am new to Chicago, so I will not claim to be a historian of the area or an expert. But from what I know and what I know a lot of folks on the call are deeply aware of, there's a rich history of this being a town center and really a regional kind of city center for the South Side. And we see that in commercial enterprises, entertainment, theaters, bowling alleys. We know that this has been a thriving location and can be again. Experienced the biggest changes. Some of those changes have been we would say, maybe neutral or in some ways positive, right? Sears is gone, not a positive site, but to see, Kennedy King College come in, there's a positive change. However, in some places,
Luke, hey, you're breaking up a little bit, Luke. You're breaking up just a little bit.
Okay, bear with me. I don't know what to do with that other
That's
than
better.
maybe move
That's better. That's better.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. So again, we're building on the history of the area, but also the history of planning in the area. We recognize that there has been decades of the community and a series of plans that have looked at this area before us. We're not starting from square one. We know in 2005, the Teamwork Englewood led Englewood Making a Difference plan started really putting pen to paper on what could happen here at Englewood Square and along the corridor more broadly, focusing on housing, economic development, community life, and building, rebuilding that town center post, the loss of the Englewood Mall. Those ideas were then carried further in 2008, the Greater Englewood Community Plan, a variation thereof. This plan actually included an advancement of the previous design, but also said, well, what happens if if the economic driver is bigger box retail, right? And so a permutation of this, of course, is what we see on the site now with the Whole Foods and the adjacent developments. Green Healthy Neighborhoods, a Chicago plan that looked beyond the boundaries of Englewood, but really started building the case for urban agriculture, not only as a way of revitalizing vacant sites, but also a form of job training and a form of economic development if it can be partnered with the right kind of processing and additional businesses associated with urban agriculture. Englewood Rising, of course, the most recent, you're all intimately familiar with this one, really operating more at the policy level than the physical planning level, but laying out a lot of great recommendations for education, health and wellness, housing, jobs, public safety, and celebrating the work that had been done. The opening of the Whole Foods and the shopping center really as a transformative change in the neighborhood. Then there are some additional plans that aren't directly on the corridor, but really do start to drive what we see as amenities in the area. The 59th Street line concept plan, now what we know as Englewood Trail, laying out the potential design for the conversion of the abandoned rail line into a nature trail bike path, and talking about what open spaces and gateways support that kind of use. And then Go Green on Racine. So we know a lot of you on this call now have been involved in creating this proposal. We at DPD are extremely excited about this kind of proposal. Great development ideas coming from the community is something we definitely want to be championing. So for those who maybe aren't as familiar, again, to paraphrase the proposal, really focus on 3 key areas: the Fresh Market, which is already broken ground, mixed-use residential development just south of 63rd on Racine, and then conversion of the Woods Academy, which could be a source of jobs training, potentially supportive housing, and green jobs moving forward. So again, it's recognizing that there's planning done that the city has been a part of, and planning that is really coming just from the community, and we want to find a way to help support that as best we can. Of course, this is all dovetailing into Invest Southwest, which kicked off, as everyone knows, late last year. And some of the things that we heard from that initial kickoff, highlighting here at the top, we need everything, right? And we highlight that in some ways to say that there's a lot of potential opportunity for new development, for new services, new retail, different kinds of housing. But that's not to say that you all are building from scratch either. There's a lot of key assets, key investments that have already occurred in the neighborhood, and we do want to celebrate those. But we do know that jobs are definitely needed. Housing and both housing stock, some of the older housing stock, and new kinds of housing. We know that economic incentives for businesses and startups are needed. more art and pedestrian improvements. So how do we think about the public realm as it relates to these improvements? And neighborhood cleanup. How do we think about people's comfort and safety in the neighborhood? How do we make the neighborhood, appear ready for new investment? Again, whether that investment is coming from city dollars or from the community and developers within the community itself. So what did we hear? Well, this engagement has continued, and the team that you've just been introduced to has taken on a number of stakeholder calls. Many of you on the phone now or on the screen now have been involved in this. With this, I do want to turn it over to Curtis Jones with SCB, who I think can help us summarize some of the key takeaways from these calls.
Thank you, Luke. During our stakeholder calls, we had a lot of lively conversations with people who are very leaders and are very active in the community itself. And we talked a lot about the wants and the needs of the residents of this community. I'm hearing an echo. And residents of this community. Could you change slides, please?
Old school building.
Can you change slides, Luke?
School building on Wabash.
Hello? Thank you. So with these takeaways, we developed and come up with a lot of key areas that we would like to focus on. One of the first ones is the health and wellness, and to look at the residents of this neighborhood and to develop their health through culinary classes, through education, and all this education can be tied in with Canadian King. We saw a need for live produce, and this could be done by using urban gardening, not only just urban garden, but hydroponics, and also doing this outside so people can.
First, I was going to ask you.
Could we have someone mute? Thank you. So that we can actually see the work that's done and see the development of the food production in the neighborhood. One of the things that's interesting when you start to develop neighborhoods is to see what's behind the neighborhood, not just the physical aspects of the community, but what is happening that you can't see. And those are the social services that support the residents. We see a need for life skills programs, for re-entry programs into the society from being jail time. We see that there is a strong need for mental illness support and counseling. What is very interesting, we found out that this community has a very high percentage of teens that are under 19 years old. So with that high percentage, we would really want to focus on teen programs and programs that are going to carry out the teens and keep up with the teens throughout the process. After school programs, childcare and daycare. The childcare and daycare are very important because even if we bring jobs to this community, when we do that, there are things that need to support those jobs, and that is being able to give the parents somewhere to have their kids while they're working. Next slide, please. Even though bringing retail and residential is important, we also found out there's a desire for professional services. These services would be architects, lawyers, accountants, legal services, contractors, printing and shipping companies, all these things to support the community. Insurance. There's a lot of information and a lot of support that's needed once you start to grow the community. With all this growth comes something that's very important to all of us, is the safety of the community. By stabilizing the rent and focusing on giving the residents activities, we're hoping that this will reduce some of the crime in the area, and to allow some of the seniors were actually told us that they were afraid to come out in certain times. We wanted to reduce that fear by increasing the community safety and actually increasing the community itself and the community well-being itself, so that they feel safe and they feel like a community come out. All of these activities will be focused and surrounded around heartbeats, community places, places where you can come to as a resident of the community and to be able to bond with other people in the community, such as local restaurants, banquet halls, so that people could come together and have events that they want to have in the community. Barbershops, nail salons have traditionally been places that build community. And with all this together, the end result is employment. That's what we've heard: jobs, jobs, jobs. And with all these things come together, we're hoping that this establishes jobs for people in the community and to support them with job training, computer classes, continuing education, and not only do that, but to push new jobs and new firms and work. So there could be an incubator where you can come together as a group and share spaces and co-working to help develop the employment and professional services in this community. Next slide, please. Your mic, your mic.
We can't hear you, Luke.
Luke?
I think Luke's having a little technical difficulty with his mic. Let's give him a second
So
here.
the next person who was supposed to do the market analysis, I believe, was one of the consultants.
Ken, could you
Give us a summary of the market analysis, please.
yes.
You want me to take
I
that?
can do that. It's Christine if you want me to.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead,
Christine, be fine.
Sure. So one of the things that we found in the data that we discovered in the market analysis and the demographic information is that with that, as we reviewed it, we looked at what would be the best goal that could be established based on what some of the needs were and some of the issues that were identified in the market conditions and the demographics of the neighborhood. So with the primary goal was to increase employment, as Curtis had talked about. So that's the workforce development, the youth programs. And the why is, we've got a $20,000 as a median income. This is lower than it is in the average of the city. There's a high unemployment rate, and 34% of the population is under 19 years old. So that's a large percentage. So having those youth programs would be very, very helpful to include in the development issues. The next issue was thinking about residential needs. And so really the goal was to increase new residential. Why? Because you've got a lot of older building stock. 50% is built before 1940s. Many of it is at the turn of the century. There's been a lot of issues with buildings that have been in disrepair. Some have been torn down. There's some vacant lots. So really being able to increase the residential is extremely important to building up the population as well in this area. So looking at having a goal of increased mobility, that the reason why was that we have low vehicle ownership, a heavy reliance in transit, and then really being able to think about how to best leverage those assets in terms of creating a walkable neighborhood, which is here today, leverage that, as well as you've got a lot of transit options between the bus and the Green Line, and very strong institutions, so that to build that into the planning for this area, as well as thinking about preventing retail leakage, because we've got a lot of money that's being spent outside the neighborhoods for just basic needs. It really should be spent in the neighborhoods and supporting the businesses here and helping to build a stronger economic foundation and economy, local economy. So I think the next slide. Do you want to cover this, Kevin? Can you go on, unmute yourself a little bit about the?
So one of the things we looked at was for the types of range of development that could be potentially put on these opportunity sites, some of the land, say behind the Whole Foods on 63rd Parkway or along 63rd Street, the corridor. That there are certain costs associated with building new, and given the costs and the sorts of rents you would get in the area, you would probably be looking at a whole package of not only private financing, but subsidies, incentives, as it says on the screen here, grants, loans, gap financing. This sort of thing has been done elsewhere on the south side. If you go over to 63rd and Cottage, it's a good example where POA and a number of other agencies cooperated. There's the state of Illinois, the city, and so forth. And you can see the bullet points of resources. There are a lot of resources there. It's a matter of marshaling them correctly and appropriately for the types of developments that could improve these now vacant sites in a way that would respond to the neighborhood needs.
Great. Thank you, Christine and Kevin. Is my mic working now? Am I back? Okay. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Calling in from my phone now. So again, thank you. I think that kind of lays out the groundwork for kind of the background information, past plans, the current market analysis. We presented to you all last week the potential opportunity sites. We've gone into that a little bit further and started understanding how those might be grouped, potentially into RFPs, or at least at this stage, just into understanding different areas of the corridor. So we know the Halsted Gateway, how do we think about what's going on at Halsted and 59th? Englewood Square being, the site we know is having an RFP launch. The 63rd and Halsted, focusing on the intersection there. And then the 63rd Street corridor as we move west, what are the opportunities there? And so we're looking at different kinds of uses, whether that's residential and neighborhood retail in Halsted Gateway, a mixed-use town center with adaptive reuse of the firehouse at Englewood Square, mixed-use transit-oriented development at 63rd and Halsted, and mixed-use infill with more neighborhood-focused retail along 63rd Street. So for today, given the time that we have, we're already at about 5:45. We're aiming to wrap at about 6:30. We're going to really focus on a few key sites in these areas. We want to focus on 3 districts: Englewood Square, 63rd and Halsted, and the 63rd Street corridor. Within that, we want to spend a good amount of time looking at the Englewood Square RFP sites with you all. We also, out of the sites at 63rd and Halsted, the corner vacant parcel right at the intersection, we think is a great opportunity to talk to you all about what we're looking for there. And 63rd Street corridor, 3 sites are very similarly positioned. Site number 9 labeled here is completely city-owned. It's not currently encumbered by any other PD. So we're looking at that and seeing what we can extrapolate to the other sites. So we'll be moving into breakout groups very shortly. Everyone has already been assigned to a breakout group, so that happened automatically as you joined. Of course, let's let just one kind of person talk at once. We have a little bit of material to present, but it's going to be collaborative. Please feel free to chime in as things are being presented. But when somebody is speaking from the community, please just be respectful and then come back with any responses to that afterwards. We're going to aim for about 15 minutes at the Englewood Square site. We really want to dive into that, and then about 10 minutes at each of the other 2 sites. If time permits. So as you're in these groups, we ask that you think about these elements here. What are your top 2 development priorities within each site or within each sub-district, given what we've talked about already? What program and scale make the most sense to you? Are we looking at more residential, more commercial? And again, keep in mind some of the things that Christine and Kevin talked about. There's a market reality behind all of this. And so, we'll be kind of shaping the conversation as we go, but we do want to hear what the desires are within that framework. And then what would you change? What's missing? What are we not showing in these early stage schemes that you would prefer to see? So you can ignore this. I think the way we've got this set up is I'm going to click a button and everybody should automatically go to a room. And we've got folks from DPD and the CCAC team ready to lead those discussions. So we'll see how that goes. I know I seem to be having technical difficulties, so if I don't show up in room number 1, in fact, let me just glance real quickly here at the.
This is Kelly. The join button is not working.
No, there shouldn't be a join button yet. I apologize. This slide is mislabeled. Where I'm about to click the button, and you should all be sent there immediately. I do just want to note who is in each room. So joining me in the first room, Albert, Kevin, and Patty and Rana. In room number 2, we've got Christine and Jen, along with Lisa and Patrick and Taft. And then in room number 3, we've got Brett and Curtis and Gerardo, as well as Kate, and I might have missed somebody there. I think Dominic, you're in room 2. So I'm going to click the button. We should all be sent to these rooms, and then we'll step through the rest of these slides. So DPD folks that I called off, if you can have the slides ready to bring those up within the breakout rooms. Okay, I'll click the button. We'll see if it works. See you back here in about 30 minutes.
That was kind of abrupt, huh? When they say come out of these meetings, you either come out of these meetings. Oh, I love that.
Sorry, yeah. I don't have visuals yet, but I do.
You're on mute, Luke. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, now, am I back?
Better.
Okay. All right, sorry. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, Commissioner, that's true. I think we tried for the 60-second countdown, but even that goes pretty quick. So I hope I didn't cut everybody off mid-sentence there. Also, so thank you, everybody. I think, I know we're a little behind schedule here, but I know at least in our group, we had some really good conversation about what folks are looking for on these sites and what some of the priorities are. I do want to take a little bit of time to hear from everybody what they were hearing in their teams. I also want to apologize to the handful of folks that were stuck in Zoom purgatory for about, I think, 15 minutes. Apologies, the teams were, or the groups were created, and if you hadn't joined at the time, I think it didn't sort you. So apologies to those folks who were stuck for a while. I'll just recap kind of what we heard a little bit. And let me just share my screen here again one last time. So I think, as we think about the different sites, we definitely heard a desire for residential units, right? That density, if done well, need not be scary in this setting, and that we're playing off of being at a TOD hub. We're playing off of the history and the vision of Englewood Square as a town center. And so if we can do more units, that helps support additional retail, additional services. So I think that came through loud and clear. I think at the same time, we need to be thinking about what the unit mix is, right? In terms of studio to 2 to 3 bedroom. We need to be conscious of rental and home ownership and making sure that we're building things for the community, not for folks who aren't from the community to come in. So as we're thinking about price points, that was something that came through loud and clear. And then things like service and access definitely came up, and we need to think through that. And obviously any proposal will need to think through that. The last thing that I'll note that we talked about was in terms of the firehouse and the kind of the heart of Englewood Square. That is seen as, I think by folks, as an opportunity to bring community together, including multiple generations, so spaces for seniors, spaces for youth. It can be a place where the urban agriculture that's in the area is celebrated, but probably not the right place to actually do any production or processing. I think a lot of what we heard is the market, the place to showcase what's being done in the neighborhood. But again, building on more of, I think Sana from Iman put it well, people are willing to travel about a quarter of the time it takes to spend in a given place. So if we want people to travel from more than a few minutes away, we're talking about needing amenities that support, a 2 to 3 to 4 hour visit. And so how do we do that in a way that also supports the residential we'd be looking to provide there? So that's kind of the big stuff that we heard. I think room 2, if I'm not mistaken, was Lisa and Patrick. Lisa or Patrick, do you want to jump in and tell us what you heard?
I cannot.
Okay. Oh, here I go. Yeah, so Lisa will back me up if necessary, but we had a wonderful conversation where I think we had a mixed bag of ideas. A lot of positivity centered around housing and the need for home ownership in the community. Some of the massing concepts of 3-flat design was very well received. And the synergy between the food concepts of bringing urban ag to Englewood Square in one of those designs synergizes very well with Kennedy King, Washburn, their food program, and also the possibility of connecting a locally sourced food program with the ready available food market that exists, right? And being that Englewood is now becoming fastly known for urban ag, and that being a deliverable in this community. Also, there was a strong desire in our group to bring office and incubator / accelerator space to the community. So the office massing design schemes were very well received as well, looking at how do we provide space for entrepreneurs who work at their craft on a second or third shift type of format. So the Greater Englewood CDC, they're locked by the constraints of where they operate and provide space for small business and entrepreneurs. And so they would love to be part of bringing a 24-hour concept office space or a live work artist type of thing where folks can actually work on their craft and have business space available beyond the constraints that they are confined to now. And lastly, I will say we had a superstar in our group who spoke very freely, Mr. Montgomery, Commissioner Bruce Montgomery, Commissioner Cox. Okay, so let me make an introduction for you. There is where appropriate, I think we agree with holding the corridor wall and building to the curb and bringing density in some of these design schemes. But because we're in a new way of how business is being imagined right now with curbside pickup, street side cafes, where necessary, and we were looking at specifically the development site between Ada and Throop on 63rd further west, of how maybe if we didn't build to the curb and provided front space in front of retail to activate it for those kinds of real life impacts that we see in the market right now with people eating outside or being forced to eat outside right now, as well as curbside pickup and those kinds of things, thinking about Divvy, people walking and being able to dine outside. And last but not least, I think I said that already, but last but not least, there's a strong need to connect broadband and digital services to this community. Some of the folks in our group thought that it just makes sense right now to make sure that in whatever designs or deliverables or development that occurs in this community, that is got to be one of the top priorities, is bringing broadband services and making sure that we finally cross that bridge and close that divide that exists.
And I have one more thing to add to that. There was also a discussion of the synergy needed with Kennedy King and their students in housing, that their students have a lot of housing insecurities. So how could we, KKC, partner in doing some type of affordable housing situation in the area for the students? I brought up artist housing and asked whether or not there was a large population of students that were artists. So we're going to connect later to talk more about that, but she did mention, Kendra Torres, about the housing insecurities that even the students have.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thanks, Luke.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. And then Kim and Gerardo, can you let us know what you heard?
Yeah, I can give us some of the highlights. I think we heard very clearly that there is a desire for the firehouse to become some kind of community hub, sit-down restaurant, entertainment venue, and in addition to that, we also heard that it may be worth our time to think about how to better fill out the site around the firehouse, and maybe is there a way to relocate the vaults or build around them to consider some of these other some other development that could essentially hold Halsted Parkway. We also heard, similar to other groups at the 63rd and Halsted site, a desire for co-working space and a space for nonprofits and local community organizations to be able to have office space, as well as, interestingly enough, we talked about that site having potential for student housing or some kind of use that really related back to Kennedy King College, whether it is some other services at the ground floor that students would use. And finally, I think there was also a good amount of discussion around two more key things. One is this idea of phasing and being able to do smaller projects that maybe happen over time. That would somehow lend itself to local developers being able to participate in these opportunities more actively, as well as this desire and concern for not just focusing, and I think the department agrees, not just focusing on new development and new construction, but also targeting our programs such as the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, such as SPIF, to assist existing building owners and retailers with facade improvements and rehabilitations of those properties.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you to everybody. I know we're considerably over at this point. I don't want to keep everyone too much longer. I do just want to say that this is not the last time we'll be talking to you about this. What's not reflected on this schedule, but is a little later in the deck, is the fact that we're coming back with a roundtable on the 13th. Invitations will go out for that shortly. But this is the current pace of the RFP release. There's a lot of dates here, but the key one here is bolded, and the 18th is not set in stone, but that's the date we're targeting to come back. Once the RFP launches here in August, there's time for folks to come do site tours. There's an initial review of submissions in November, and then we definitely want the roundtable's feedback on those submissions. And we are figuring out the best way to keep everyone engaged and figuring out the best way to make sure that there's meaningful feedback from you all on these respondents. And so we want to make sure we're hearing you. It's not just in the visioning stage. It's when rubber hits the road, we want to make sure that we're coming back to you with the proposals that we're hearing about. And then, of course, there's additional public processes after that, but we want a targeted workshop with you all at that stage. So more to come on that. I think this is probably too heavy a topic to handle with the time we have left. We've covered a lot of ground today. We are not forgetting about this. This, I know, was an important thing that came out of the last roundtable. How do we make sure that there's representation from the community and from people of color particularly in the process as we move through the RFP and implementation? And so that it starts with the developers and who actually responds to the RFP, and the design teams that they bring along, the contractors that are hired to do the work, and even ultimately the folks that occupy these spaces. And so I do think this is too big of a topic to bring up now that we're already 20 minutes over, so apologies, but we will tackle this in our roundtable in 2 weeks. If there are any kind of things that rise to the front here, please feel free to shout them out now, but I do know that we're looking at exceeding existing requirements, finding ways to encourage higher levels of representation, and finding ways to target that representation, potentially at the zip code level to make it a little bit more geographically focused as well. So I don't want to give the short shrift, but given the time that we're at, I think we're best off really diving into this in 2 weeks, and we can bring some detailed discussion to that, I think. So with that, our next steps. We've got a lot moving forward. Again, the focus of today was twofold, right, in terms of big moves. It was broader discussion of the corridor, but specifically the Englewood Square RFP site. So while this is not the last time we'll talk about Englewood Square, it's nowhere close to the last time we'll talk about these other sites, these other opportunity sites. None of those currently have an RFP in the works. Some of those have, private ownership that we, should the city be taking the lead on those, it'll take some time to get those going. So we will be coming back to you, often and frequently with those discussions. So we'll be listening, we'll be leveraging existing assets, continuing to identify needs and wants. We know a lot of that has been done, but we want to make sure that we're up to date with those things. As noted in some of these discussions, COVID, things like curbside pickup, those are things that weren't part of these earlier plans. We want to make sure we're updating that as things go along. We know the need to create amenities, foster businesses and employment opportunities, renovate the key historic building, of course, of the firehouse, but as we heard Gerardo said, find ways to leverage city programs to not necessarily require new construction to get new development. So that's a key part of that. And then making sure things are feasible from a financial standpoint and really managing expectations and understanding that, this is not about settling. This is about carving the right path forward with the market realities we have. Phasing might be one solution to that. Taking things on, little by little. We know we need to make some big leaps here, but how can we do it in such a way where we can bite off, the right amount from the start? So with that, of course, any questions, please email us, dpd@cityofchicago.org. Those notes will get to us and we can reach back out with any comments. We're still doing additional stakeholder interviews, so for those of you who I know I've reached out to, keep a lookout for those schedules. Again, roundtable number 3, we're targeting July 13th. That's in 2 weeks. Quick turnaround, but we really want to come back to you quickly before the RFP, which itself is released on August 11th. And that date is a bit tricky because materials need to be ready by the end of July to make that August 11th date. And so we want to make sure that we're working with you all to move things forward quickly so we can start seeing some things come out of this process. And then, of course, we'll come back for another roundtable in August. So with that, I'll turn it over to, I don't know, Jim or Commissioner, if you wanted to say anything to close us out, but I think that's really all we had.
Sure, I'd be happy to just underscore how important it is, these type of sessions, to help assure that this strategy fits with the goals and the aspirations of the folks on this table and other folks that you represent. We are leaving nothing to chance. We are working with the African American real estate community to help make sure that there is a pipeline of community developers who are ready to form teams, find coalitions of folks in this geography and go after these projects. They are working independently. They know their business, but they realize that this is something they want to see developed by the South Side and see areas that are developed on the West Side being developed by folks who live and work and operate in those communities. So it is all in the evaluation, how these proposals are evaluated, how they are disseminated, and you are here as our sounding board. We also hope many of you will be the ones forming the groups that will respond. So more on that later. This has been incredibly energizing just to listen to what folks' concerns and hopes are for this process. And I just can't thank you enough. To block out this much time at the end of your day is enormously generous. And we thank you, and we'll be back in touch with you very, very soon. So I just want to thank everyone, both our consultant teams, for their tireless work, our planning and development team for the kind of structure and clarity of what we're trying to do here. And then most importantly, thank you for going on this journey with us. And I'm just really excited to see what the future holds. So thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Great session.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking with us.